welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, 18-hour special initiative that celebrates the undying entrepreneurial spirit of micro, small and medium enterprises. This is the only daily MSME platform in the country, a show where you can voice your concerns and get answers to all your queries directly from our team of experts. We understand the issues that you, the MSME entrepreneur, face, and the show aims to bring you the most relevant and the most updated information on everything related to your businesses. Tonight, we're talking about demonetization for you, the MSME entrepreneur, the impact, the opportunities, and whether it promotes entrepreneurship. In studio with me tonight, I have Manavjeet Singh. He's the CEO and founder of Rubik. We have Sanjeev Khandelwal. He's the founder of Xtalk. We also have Ramanujam Narayan. He's the founder of Contratra Universal. Gentlemen, thank you all very much for being with us here tonight. And demonetization is something that we thought is going to have a short-term impact, but clearly not. The effects of that is still lingering. I may expect it could be a while perhaps before we see the last of it in terms of the negative impact. But let's maybe set the stage for our viewers by talking about what each of you do. And let me start with you, Manav.
Hi, I'm Manav. In fact, I'm from Rubik. We are the largest marketplace of financial products, online marketplace. So we believe for every borrower there's a lender somewhere, and we created this neutral platform where they can discover each other. So we're leveraging technology with the domain expertise we have in this particular space. So basic objective is to focus on the loans and across the product lines, whether it's retail or SMEs.
Okay.
I'm Sanjeev from Xtalk. We're a wholesale B2B marketplace for fashion and lifestyle products across fabrics, apparels, home textiles, and yarns. We address $126 billion space in India, connecting manufacturers and traders and cutters and manufacturers and retailers.
Great. Wish you all the best in that. Ramanujam, maybe you can also tell our viewers what your company does.
So I am Ramanujam. I am the Global Financial Controller of Geometric Limited. It's listed on the BSE and the NSE. It's an associate of Godrej, and recently it has got acquired by HCL. So in my capacity, I head the financial reporting of 11 countries across the globe, and the company is primarily into IT, engineering and PLM business, and I handle the finance and financial accounting, reporting, taxation of all the 11 countries.
Okay. The reason I thought we would set the stage by talking about what each of your companies does is to give our viewers a sense of who amongst you, and I can immediately think of you, Manav, has started seeing whether it's an opportunity or a challenge, the impact and the effects really coming out of demonetization. And if either of you gentlemen have also seen that personally into your businesses, maybe you can comment. But let me ask you, Manav.
Certainly. What we have seen in past 8 to 10 weeks, and somewhere around mid-December, things started changing. And now I personally believe that it's definitely a positive move. And from 3-4 months point of view, there's a pain, definitely for sure, no doubt about that. But from a long-term perspective, I believe this is definitely going to help especially the market which we address. And because whatever we do on monthly basis, a large part of that is to the SMEs, the financing to SMEs. So I believe in the long term, the SMEs today, how they do their business, because all said and done, the economy is changing, the consumer behavior is changing. So when they are looking for funding to expand their businesses, so transparency is the key. And what this particular move has somewhere forced all of us to, if we were not there, so somewhere to converting, so maybe to the wallets or getting more digital. So I personally believe that from a long-term perspective, it's a very, very positive move. While 3-4 months, the pain is there, and there are times you really can't comprehend at times how it exactly is going to impact your business. But we have seen very positive. When we're interacting with, in fact, the customers as well, I can see very clearly that in past 4 or 5 weeks and the ground level, the situation is improving.
Okay, so you're saying it's been positive, and before we come to what has really worked in terms of demonetization, and maybe I can ask you to comment on this, Sanjeev. You're someone who's, I presume, in close contact with a whole host of people, both on the buyers as well as the seller side. I want to talk about the challenges and break it down in terms of what have been possibly the 1 or 2 biggest challenges that MSMEs have seen coming out of demonetization. Yes, it's been a pain point for the entire economy, but particularly for the small buyer, the small seller.
So the biggest challenge has been, in our opinion, they really haven't had good advice and counseling on what they can do about it. Okay. So nobody has really been able to authoritatively tell them that, hey, now these are the 5 steps that you can or should take to change your business and bring it online. I think that the government, on one hand, when it looks at corporate governance, there is a lot of new regulation that comes in. This is really, actually going to bring down the entrepreneurship in this country, and it's going to have an impact on entrepreneurship because, entrepreneurs need the ability to have the freedom to come in and work their idea, and if it doesn't work, the ability to exit it easily as well. Today, it is impossible. I have investments in multiple startups that I've been investing in over the years, and some of them haven't succeeded, and it's impossible for us to exit, and we're still dealing with those. And if it's going to become more difficult for companies to keep up with the regulations that the government is putting out, we think it's really going to have an adverse impact on the entrepreneurship in this country.
Okay.
We understand that 94% of businesses in our space do not have structured, organized bank finance. So they really depend on community finance. Allowing them to build transactional histories and allowing them to actually be in an inclusive economy would help them grow. So they're all aware of that and they want to do it. I think they need to be shown the way how to do it.
Okay, so it's the method of how they're going to go about doing that. You said something interesting that no one voluntarily wants to hang on to cash, Ramanujan. I want to ask you if you agree with what he's saying. Given, Indians' high propensity towards, say, for example, saving, do you think that demonetization in a country like India in the long term is definitely going to work, that, the move towards becoming a cashless economy is going to be good?
Definitely, I have a positive as well as, there are certain challenges. The positive point is, I would say the demonetization initiative started on November 8th. It's an era of remonetization right now because it has been 3 months. There has been certain impact, or I would say demonetization has got a transient impact on the economy. There has been certain impacts on the economic activities of the MSMEs, but I would say that is temporary. And from a long-term perspective, if you see, as rightly said by Manav, the liquidity in banks is continuously increasing because of the deposits that has been done by people. So as a result of which the borrowing rates have improved significantly. So this will, encourage the people to go to banks, borrow more money, and it will increase the borrowing capacity of people. So I would say that, it has got a very positive impact, but the challenge that the government will face is this demonetization particularly will result into a lot of digitization. So it is a change in mindset, right? Because we have to reach to the rural masses also.
So you are one company and you are talking to your clients, but what kind of changes and how are changes really going to be effected at the grassroots level? How do those changes come about?
So in our view, I think the government should be sensitive to the fact that that the business and percentages fly, that 50, 60, 70% of our economy has been cash. Different people have different estimates and different yardsticks to measure it. But the government has to be realistic that that's the way the business has been. So do not come down hard upon them. Allow them to transition, make it an easy transition. I think it is for many of us here, all of us I think in this room here right now and in general, we believe that cash is, has a expiry date on it. Cash as a concept will come to an end, and money will become electronic. I think there's really no debate in most people's mind today. The government has taken the right steps in the right direction, but it needs to give it more empathy and leniency in making that transition happen.
We're going to head into a break, but just before we take a break, I have a very quick question to ask, and this is probably a sort of contrarian view.
Sure.
Given the lack of internet penetration in India, was it fair of the government to have pushed demonetization, or are the solutions and the innovations coming about because of what we're seeing in terms of demonetization?
So I would like to believe that I think this is the right move. We have to start somewhere, because and there is no benchmark, there is no number you can, that threshold that this is the level we increase, that's where we're going to start. So I think it's a good start, because of this now what is happening, the discussion has started, people are reaching out, we are trying out. And one important aspect, like for example in SME, when they're selling that product, whom they're selling it to. So today, everybody, as consumer, when we are looking at any product, so we are looking at the customer service, the experience. Time frame is important. It means speed. It means digital. So somewhere when you're dealing with that profile of customers, so that's why it's important to change. So I would like to believe that there's nothing right or wrong timing, but I think it's the perfect timing to somewhere to start. Otherwise, if we wait for years, I don't think it would have made any other difference, but it's a good start.
Let's just take a very quick break. We'll come back and talk about this more. I also want to talk about what lessons that we can learn from our global peers when it comes to demonetization. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on the Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight we're talking about demonetization and what you, the MSME entrepreneur, should keep in mind about demonetization, and also about the kind of impact it can possibly have as far as your businesses are concerned. Just before we took the break, I said let's talk about what's happening globally. Sweden, for example, is a near cashless economy. The US uses a high percentage of plastic money. Ramanujan, let me come to you and ask you to talk to our viewers about what lessons that we can possibly learn from these countries.
So if you see the extent of plastic money usage that is there in US, the extent of plastic money usage in other countries, it is phenomenal. Cash is not being encouraged by many countries. In fact, looking at India, Australia demonetized $100 Australian note in Australia, and even the other countries have started following this. So I would say that there is a lot to learn, because the culture in which the Indians have lived all this while and the overseas culture is quite different. So I would say it is going to be a big mindset change, because people will take time. There has to be a lot of initiatives, but there is a lot of things to learn in terms of the spending habits and how to go cashless, like education about credit cards, education about debit cards. Several online schemes are there, so we have to educate people on how to use these particular platforms.
And I think Aadhaar is one of the best examples globally about how you can use technology and how the government can ensure that financial inclusion to a large extent is also done as far as a country which is as big as ours is concerned.
So I have, in fact, 2 weeks back, I was in Paris FinTech. We were one of the finalists in the FinTech Award in Paris. So it was 40 countries who participated there. So I had an opportunity to interact with virtually the best of the names in financial technology world globally. So when I spoke to a whole lot of participants, whether in Germany, from Poland, from Latvia, I was amazed to see the way they are leveraging technology and the way they are transacting. So not only the payment side, whenever we talk about financial technology, India is most of the time is about payments, but lending, like specifically focused. I was amazed to see the kind of technology deployment.
Sanjeev, Manav is saying we're just scratching the surface as far as innovation or as far as digital inclusion or financial inclusion is concerned. What more do you think that can be done? How do you think MSMEs and startups can really innovate in this space? What are the opportunities?
Well, firstly, I think they are, given the demographics of our country, the young demographics of our country, and given the fact that in a typical trading company environment also there are young people either from the family or working in the company, they are all thinking, encouraged, and now also a bit forced to think differently and innovate. And there is a lot that's happening in terms of how they want to work. So in case of Xstock, for example, we've been seeing a bunch of young people, boys who are maybe 25, 27-year-old, who are using our platform much like how people use NSE or BSE for day trading. So they're finding suppliers and they get the information and they take it to a buyer and they're flipping it on the same day basis, because they do not want to do business the way that their fathers and their forefathers have done. So I think demonetization, mobility, connectivity, electronic commerce are the way to go. So I think the commerce is a very hockey stick growth going towards electronic rather than containers and trucks moving. It's all through now the internet pipes, and the young India is here to take advantage of it.
Okay. Sanjeev, I also want to ask you about some of the announcements that came about in the budget. For example, there were some announcements made specifically for MSMEs, but it was being hoped that the budget would help MSMEs to offset the kind of, at least short-term impact that we're seeing out of demonetization. In your opinion, has that come about?
I think there are some good midterm announcements that were made specifically related to skill development, related to taxation, related to TUF, which is the Textile Upgradation Fund, related to infrastructure. But what does it mean to me as an MSME? Not really much. And I think there's a lot more that the government could have done to make me feel good about the blows of the last 3 months. And I'm really thinking from the point of view of our 14,000 plus buyers who are in markets like Kalba Devi or Chandni Chowk or Bada Bazaar in Calcutta, Chickpet in Bangalore. And these are real people who contribute billions of dollars to the economy of this country. And I think the government needs to think more to do about this trading community.
Would you agree, Ramanujam?
I would agree to Sanjeev that something more has to be done. But I would say that, there is a lot of encouragement given to innovation. A lot of aggregator models have come into the picture. Government is giving a lot of benefits to startups. So I would say a lot needs to come.
Okay, Ramanujam, we are at a point when we're talking about governance issues for India Inc. Not particularly MSMEs, but is this move necessarily going to push for more transparency, whether it's financial, whether it's governance across companies?
There is going to be a significant push as far as governance and compliance is concerned, because if you look at India in the last 1 year, there has been significant compliances which have been introduced in the form of new accounting standards or a new tax related regime, BEPS initiatives, and GST is going to come into the picture. And GST will simplify the business to a great extent, but in the initial 1 year there will be a lot of struggle, there will be a lot of hassles which will be there, but that can be still turn around. But I would say, as far as startups and MSMEs are concerned, they need to be compliant and they should stick to governance from day one. Because startups, it's a journey. From startups, it becomes MSME. From MSME, it has to become a corporate at some point of time. That is the way I look at it.
Okay. Sanjeev, one thing we possibly haven't discussed is cybersecurity risks rather. When we had, say, Jandan, when there was talk of Aadhaar, there was always the concern of what kind of risks could be possibly associated with this. What, in your mind, are the risks associated with a cashless economy, and how can we overcome those?
So we no longer need to put the locks on our door so much anymore, as we need to secure our accounts and our data, because everything is electronic. And I think that it's a fairly secure world out there when you look at the banking and when you look at how the money moves. But at the same time, this is a constantly evolving situation. The hackers keep getting smarter, and the security experts keep getting smarter and building one up. So this is going to be always the game. I think that's the new world we live in today. So there is a threat, and there is a clear threat, but at the same time it's inevitable, and there's nothing to be scared about. It's nothing more different than a armored truck getting robbed or you getting mugged. That it's just that the style and the fashion will change.
We're running out of time. I know there's so much to be discussed. You were talking about GST, there's the budget, of course. But the fact remains that it's just a short-term pain. It's definitely good for the economy. It's definitely good for MSMEs in the long run. We still need to do a little bit, the government still needs to do a little bit when it comes to educating or counseling people about how they can move to a cashless and a digital economy and the benefits of financial inclusion. So, Ramanujam, let me come to you first. You've already said that you think it's definitely a positive move. So maybe I can ask you, what in your mind is the need of the hour for India to become a completely cashless economy?
Need of the hour will be education. Amongst the masses, particularly in rural areas, and educating people continuously on the importance of cashless economy and what are the benefits that they will get. That is going to be the need of the hour, because many people misunderstand that if government is taking certain initiatives, how are we getting benefited? But people will have to understand, and they have to come out of the myth that demonetization is not beneficial. They have to understand the long-term benefits rather than the short-term benefits of it.
Okay, let me, Sanjeev, ask you the same question.
So I think absolutely. I think we're all in sync here that education is absolutely the need of the hour. Counseling. I also think marketing is the need of the hour. So we need to evangelize the concept of cashless economy. We need to evangelize the benefits of it to the common man. For many of us, it may be very obvious, but it is not to most people. They still like the physical holding of the cash and the smell of the money and it under their mattresses, I think. So we really need to explain, we need to market the whole thing to them on one hand. On the other hand, I think there are some other measures that the government should look at. It costs government a fair amount of money, and there are studies that show that maybe 50 to 70 rupees is what it costs the government to manage a 500 rupee note in terms of printing, distribution, and the damn thing keeps coming back to you and you have to manage it again and redistribute it again. So the government is actually saving that money by way of going electronic. Of course, part of it is going into the network and the servers and the data. But I think the government should think about really taking this as a startup and a business initiative on its own and market the whole concept.
Okay. Manav, let me come to you then finally.
Sure.
Ramanujam earlier was saying that liquidity definitely is looking good,
yep,
and that benefit is being passed on to borrowers. But I want to ask you, given the fact that NPA is at a 10-year high almost in the industry, most MSMEs who get in touch with us on the Leaders of Tomorrow say that they're still finding it very difficult to raise funding. What have you started seeing in terms of lending to the economy, lending to MSMEs, and what is going to really make that big difference when it comes to fundraising for MSMEs?
Absolutely. So there are two aspects to that. One is like whenever we say the funding is not available, so which I don't think is true a lot of times, because what happens is awareness. Because as I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, that we believe for every borrower there's a lender somewhere, but today they don't know how to discover each other. Because physically it's not possible to reach out to multiple financial institutions, but there are so many solutions available. That is where I believe the technology comes into play, and that's where a company like Rubik, like what we are exactly doing. So we are making sure that they discover each other, the borrowers and the lenders. So coming back to the MSMEs issues, what I believe a lot of times when we interact with the customers, and specifically SME space, that they are not even aware how do we put the file together, what are the kind of data which is required. So a lot of time the basics are in place, but how that is represented, which kind of financial institution, like every financial institution will have a different risk appetite, and how they will, which segment they want to lend. While nobody will say, but it has to be inferred from a data you collect or details. This is what we do. Sure. But that is where I believe that transparency is very, very important. And when they make sure that everything is transparent, we have the data, then they'll be able to discover a lot more options. Because I believe personally that today there are so many companies who are working on a completely paperless kind of solution where they can transact, they can probably give you online approval. Like this is what we do. We have integrated with the bank's lending systems. We can give online approval. So my point here will be very clear that as SMEs they should use this particular platform. But to reach out to them, of course, the education I definitely agree is very important, and that's where we are doing our own bit, and that's where I think the government needs to really pay a lot of attention, and of course encourage companies like Rubik, like for example, what we do to who are spreading awareness here. Sure. This is, I think, a need of the hour.
Sure. All right. Manav, Sanjeev, Ramanujam, thank you very much for being with us here tonight to talk about demonetization for you, the MSME. Do remember that if you have any feedback for us, you can get in touch with us at leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com. You can personally tweet at me at Sunanda_J. You can reach us on social media using the hashtag LOT or call us on that number you see on your screen. We promise to have all your questions answered. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.